Yo, kid, what's up?
What's going on, boys? How we doing? Happy Wednesday.
Yes. I bet in a past Birchie life, this was a pretty exciting day for you the night before Thanksgiving. Am I wrong?
Who's not to say in current Birchie's life? Don't sell me short now. I can still get after a little bit.
I suspect it's changed a little bit with a little legend in the house, but nonetheless,
I can always strap him to my back and bring him along to Tin Roof. You know how it is.
Actually, it doesn't surprise me that would be under consideration from you.
I go to Tin Roof. I love it. Birchie loving it downtown.
All right, so
hey, Gator, I gotta have you settle a debate. So because I usually come on for this awesome spot on Fridays, sensing that we might want to do it today before the game as we usually do, I texted Karsch this morning, 7:23, and I said, hey, are we sticking to our usual Friday spot this week? He said, yeah, what time? We decided on 11 a.m. So you can imagine my surprise when I was driving into the studio at about 10:30 this morning and heard Doug Karsch say, and the Birchie kid will join us at 11 a.m. today. I thought, I could have sworn we had settled on Friday. Am I in the wrong or was Karsch in the wrong? Who crossed whose wires in that exchange?
Clearly, your wires are crossed. You were the one that was at fault.
Good to know. So it's been settled.
Yeah, it's settled.
You know, there were wires crossed because when you said our usual Friday spot, I thought you meant today is a Lions Friday.
Yeah,
so it was just about the time. But I'm glad we got you on it all. And let's start with injury-wise. Who do you think plays tomorrow and who doesn't?
So we know, for one, that Kirby Joseph won't play. I mean, Campbell said he doesn't see him playing, so we can safely rule him out, unfortunately, for the sixth game in a row. And then they're feeling pretty good about Davenport, and I know I said the same thing last week, and I apologize if you were under the impression that he would play because of that, but Dan obviously said he was hopeful that Davenport plays on our airwaves on Tuesday and suggested the same thing when he spoke with the media in Allen Park later on that same day. I get the sense that they're going to let Davenport rip tomorrow, and boy, do they need more production from that spot, so that's a big boost. And then there's a bunch of unknowns right now, man. This short turnaround has thrown this team into flux a little bit. You've got Graham Glasgow, who is dealing with a knee injury, and he was an estimated no practice in both of their walkthroughs this week. The same would go for Khalif Raymond with an ankle injury. Same goes for Brock Wright with a neck injury. Obviously, three pretty important players. And if those guys can't go, you're probably looking at Tristan Colon stepping in at center for Graham Glasgow. You're probably looking at, obviously, Tesla as wide receiver 3 for Raymond, and then either Dominic Lovett or Tom Kennedy on punt returns. No one else other than Raymond has returned a single punt for this team this season. If Brock Wright can't go, some combination of Ferkser, Ross Dwelly, and maybe even Jackson Meek. So a lot to sort out. And then, there's some big news coming potentially today on Josh Paschal, and we're still awaiting word. I know you guys are aware of that situation yourselves, but obviously troubling when he popped up yesterday as an estimated no practice in the walkthrough, because he's a guy who has to be activated today along with Miles Frazier, or his season is over. His window for activation expires today. So those two guys either have to be activated or shut down for the year.
Okay, two things on that. One, do you expect Frazier to get activated?
Yes, I would be shocked if Frazier is not activated. I don't think he'll play tomorrow, but I do think they activate him.
And why didn't they put Kirby Joseph on the IR?
It's a great question, and I actually caught up with Kirby on Monday. He can be sometimes elusive, Jahmyr Gibbs-like in the locker room, but was able to grab him for a few questions and just kind of talking through his injury with him. To be clear, he is itching to go. He is raring to go, but I think, there's a possibility that they brought him back a little bit prematurely the first time, and that's why they find themselves in this situation now, being very conservative with this rehab. And Kirby was like, look, I would play, I would return right now if I could, but I also know that we can't rush this. I can't rush this, because if I come back again and go down again, it's going to be an even longer absence. It sounds to me, just reading between the lines, that he's dealing with some kind of knee tendonitis. Dan said yesterday they're trying to just re-strengthen the muscles around the knee to stabilize it and get him back into a spot where he can contribute on game days. So maybe that's a difficult timeline to gauge, and they were hopeful that he would return sooner than he has. Dan said this month that recovery hasn't gone as quickly or smoothly as they hoped. So all of those things have kind of contributed to it. And then the fact that they do only have 8 IR activations, and they've already used 4 and may have to use a couple more moving forward. But I agree, in hindsight, they clearly should have put him on IR.
This week on this station, both Dan Campbell and Jared Goff were asked independently about what does "we got to clean stuff up" mean specifically. They both said independently of each other, third down conversions and third down efficiency. Is that something you see as the same thing, or are we all just reading from the same page here?
Yeah, I'm with them on that for sure. I thought they were actually much better last week in third and manageable, and that's an issue that has tripped them up all season. I believe in last week's game they did convert all or almost all of their 3rd and 7 or less. That feels like a step forward, albeit against the defense that has been gouged all season long. That was a sign of progress, and they also need to be better, and I hate to be the one to repeat what everyone else is saying, but on first and second down, third down is going to decide this team's offensive ceiling, and maybe their ceiling as a team, guys. If you look at the 4 teams each year that have made conference championship weekend, it's been 6 years since the team ranked in the bottom half of the league in third down and made conference championship weekend, and 10 years since the team ranked in the bottom third and reached conference championship weekend. That was the Broncos way back in 2015, who happened to win the Super Bowl with the number 1 defense in the NFL. So that's what you would need to offset the Lions' third down offense as it's currently functioning.
Burchie, if I have a scale, and at one end of the scale, it says the Detroit Lions are fatally flawed. And at the other end of the scale, it says the Detroit Lions are gearing up for a run at the Super Bowl. Which way does the arrow point more for you? Does it point more towards they're fatally flawed, or does it point towards they're gearing up for the Super Bowl, or is it right in the middle? We can't tell yet.
Well, I can't duck the question and give you right in the middle, huh? That would be unfair.
You can do it.
If I'm being completely honest, I would lean more toward fatally flawed, because I don't know how they fix this offensive line other than Miles Frazier providing a huge boost at guard over the next month or two. And this team has built itself on its offensive line and its ability to run the ball, to get into play action for 4 to 5 years. And I struggle to believe 13 weeks into the season that unit is going to go from really league average to at least good again, let alone elite, especially when you're dealing with a left tackle in Taylor Decker, who is obviously banged up, with a center in Graham Glasgow, who's been a guard in the past, who is banged up himself, with a backup guard in Coyote Owashika, who, let's just call it what it is, has not played well since stepping in for Mahogany, and in a rookie in Ratledge who has had his ups and downs. You can go across this offensive line, and the only spot where right now they have a player who is a better version of the one they had last year is right tackle in Sewell, and that was a given. So, look, it's possible, and the one thing working in their favor that we should all acknowledge is that the NFL field this year is pretty watered down. Like, there really is no juggernaut unless you might believe in the Rams. So there is a more of a runway and an opportunity because of that. But I just think going into the playoffs, it's hard to believe right now they can fully trust that offensive line if they indeed get there.
They got absolutely gashed against the Giants defensively. There were over 500 yards in offense for the Giants. It felt like every pass play, somebody was just wide open. They averaged over 20 yards a reception against the Lions. Is it just simply missed assignments that can be, hey, reps in practice, getting guys back? There's a little bit of confusion there. We'll figure this out. Or is this a deeper problem they have on the defensive side?
I think that was a one-off last week. Credit the Giants for throwing all kinds of gadgets at them that the Lions had not seen on film. And then there were numerous individual errors on almost all of those explosive plays. I mean, go to the very first one where they throw the trick play touchdown to Robinson, and it was the safety, Kirby Joseph's replacement, Thomas Harper, who bid on that play. And then he actually ended up playing pretty well over the course of the game. The 3rd and 17 later in the game where Anzalone kind of lost his man in coverage, he thought that Al-Quadin Muhammad had Jameis Winston wrapped up because he did and just didn't finish. I mean, you go through the tape of each of those plays, it seems like if one player had just finished his job or done his assignment, they could eliminate those. And I think that those will solve themselves. And, there were times last week even where Wan'Dale Robinson just beat Amik Robertson in coverage. And that's why you feel better about moving Amik back into the nickel spot and hopefully getting Terrion back tomorrow and obviously having DJ Reed back on the outside. But, guys, look, this pass rush has to be better. That was the biggest reason those explosive plays happened last week, in my opinion. And, look, I know the pressures from a counting perspective may have been there by the end of the game on a day where the defense played 82 snaps. But Jameis Winston had, I believe, 3.2 seconds to throw per dropback, one of the highest rates in the NFL last week. Against this Packers defense the week prior, he only had about 2.5 seconds, one of the lowest rates in the NFL for that week. So that gives you an idea of the kind of pressure that Green Bay can bring and Detroit is struggling to bring right now.
Final thing for you, Burchie. If I have a scale, and at one end of the scale it says Green Bay wins, and the other end of the scale it says Detroit wins, which way is your arrow pointing?
My arrow is pointing pretty soundly towards Detroit tomorrow. It really is. For one reason more than any other, I do not see Dan Campbell getting swept by Fancy Pants LaFleur. I just don't. He's not going to let it happen. I struggle to even conceptualize what I know. There are, a few matchups that probably clearly favor Green Bay tomorrow, including that defensive line on the interior. But I think that Dan Campbell finds a way to get his team over the finish line tomorrow. And then maybe you can ask me the scale question that you first asked me, and my answer is different coming out of that game. Tomorrow is a defining game for this team, and I think it will inform our judgments moving forward pretty heavily.
Really quickly here, my alma mater, Michigan State, is playing a dog game on Saturday night against Maryland. But the dog game of the week might be Boston College at Syracuse.
Two dogs.
Quick on that. What do you think will happen there with your Boston College team?
If we keep expanding the playoff, my Eagles might have a shot. If we can get our second win this week, maybe we can find a way to shoehorn them in there.
Good luck with that.
It's been a long season, boys. It's been a long season.
Yeah.
Burchie, always good to talk to you. We'll do it again, and we'll set the time early in the week so there'll be no confusion.
Sounds good. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Hey, Karsch, we're almost always on the same page, man. Going back to the very first time we played beer league hockey together, and I set you up for a backdoor Catherine tap-in. So let it be known that usually we have elite chemistry. Just a slight hitch today.
Not today. Not today.
Yeah, not today. Not today.
See you, Burchie.
See you, bud.
A backdoor Catherine Tappan. Wow. That guy. He's the Burchie kid, our Lions insider here on 97.1 The Ticket.